Hey everybody, welcome to the Football Frenzy. My name is Paul Valle. Notorious in his absence is Adam Rothgeb. He had a last-minute family event that he couldn't get out of, so he had to cancel today. I'm actually on my way to the airport, headed to Florida for a baseball tournament this week, playing in the Roy Hobbs World Series. But we didn't want to skip a week of the show, especially since we're going to be skipping next week since I'm going to be out of town and the Ravens are on a bye anyway. So I wanted to get a show out to you. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter one since I'm doing it by myself and I don't have Adam to bounce stuff off of. But hey, without further ado, let's get right into it. Ravens coming off a 23-17 win over the Bengals. Lamar Jackson threw for 236 yards. No touchdowns. You'd like to see him get the ball in the end zone through the air a little bit. But he did rush for 152 yards and a touchdown. And he actually won the FedEx Ground Player of the Week award, becoming the first quarterback in history to win that award. Usually it goes to running backs. And on top of that, since he won the FedEx Air Player of the Week award back in Week 1 for his 324-yard, 5-touchdown performance against the Dolphins, he is the only player in NFL history to win both the Air and Ground Player awards ever and in the same season. So hats off to Lamar Jackson playing at an MVP level this season so far, especially coming off of that bit of a stinker that he had against the Steelers. Now look, a lot of people got on me for saying that he may have regressed a little bit in that game, but Lamar did not play a good game against the Steelers, and I was really happy to see him bounce back and play one of his better performances ever against the Bengals last week. Now look, my segment of shade this week goes to the analysts and the pundits who were sitting there saying that the Ravens had an uninspiring victory against the Bengals. Because, look, that game was never in question. We all knew from the first whistle that that game was the Ravens' game to win. 23-7 is not indicative of how far apart the teams actually were. The Ravens ran for 269 yards. They controlled the clock the entire game. Bengals couldn't get anything going. And really, if you take away a kickoff return for a touchdown, that game's a 2-touchdown game. So, uninspiring? Nah, not against a division opponent at home, in the NFL. If you win a game, you win a game. Whether you win by 40 or you win by 4, it doesn't matter. The Ravens got the win. I don't need to be inspired. I'd rather be inspired after this week if the Ravens go out and beat Seattle. So we can talk about inspiring victories against teams like the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots. The Cincinnati Bengals, just go in there, get a win, and get out of that game healthy, and the Ravens did. So also, what I want to talk about a little bit is that Ravens defense. Look, they've been playing a lot better the last 2 weeks. They're up to now 13th overall in team defense, but that pass rush is so severely lacking. The Bengals were on something like their 5th string left tackle in that game. They have a very porous offensive line. Andy Dalton going into the game had been sacked 20 times, which was 3rd most in the NFL, and the Ravens got no pressure on them whatsoever. Now, Dalton didn't have a standout game, didn't throw any touchdowns, had the 1 interception, but the Ravens didn't get a sack until late in the game, late in the 4th quarter. They ended up with 2 on the game, but they were pretty close together late in the 4th quarter. They need a pass rush, and they went out this week and they traded Kenny Young and a 5th rounder for Marcus Peters, which is a standout corner coming over from the LA Rams, so that LA could then trade for Jalen Ramsey. But that's neither here nor there. The Ravens got Marcus Peters, 2-time Pro Bowl cornerback, 1-time All-Pro. His rookie year, he was Defensive Rookie of the Year and led the NFL with 8 interceptions. He's got 4 defensive touchdowns in his career, so the guy's a ball hawk. 24 interceptions in 4 and about a half years, because if you're taking this year into account, he's already got 2 picks right now. The guy's a ball hawk. He's a playmaker, and now teams have to go out and figure out, well, look, they're not targeting Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey is locking down team's number 1 wide receivers, one of the better corners in the league. Well, now you can't throw the other side too. You don't have Kennedy to pick on anymore. You have Marcus Peters, and he's going to make you pay if you try and pick on him. Earl Thomas playing at safety. This team is really strong right now. Jimmy Smith's coming back after the bye against the Patriots, so they're really deep now at corner, which they were at the beginning of the year until all the injuries. So they're re-added to the depth. But the whole point of this is they need that pass rush. And yeah, a good secondary makes for a better pass rush because the quarterback has to hold on to the ball longer to wait for his receivers to get open. But the Ravens aren't getting anything. And Pernell McPhee playing way more than they anticipated he would be playing. He's going to wear out by the end of the year. Judon's been, mediocre. He's had some standout games, but he hasn't really done much recently. And after that, they don't have anybody to get to the quarterback. You look at Michael Pierce and Brandon Williams. Those guys are run stuffers. They're not quarterback rushers. So I still anticipate the Ravens are going to go out and make a move and try and get some formidable pass rusher. Is it going to be Von Miller? Probably not. They don't have the cap space. They only have about $2.2 million left in cap space, and they're not going to be able to clear it to get him. But they could go out and finagle some things around and get another pass rusher. They sorely need it, especially with the tough part of the schedule coming up. Now, you look at this game, they're going to be playing the Seahawks. It's going to be a tough game. The Seahawks, just like the Ravens, they have a very mobile quarterback who can extend plays, and they used to have a great defense that is suspect now. It sounds very similar to the Baltimore Ravens. Wilson, 12 touchdown passes, no interceptions. The guy is playing at an elite level and an MVP level. And with Patrick Mahomes dislocating that kneecap and probably being out for a minimum of 3 weeks, Russell Wilson's got to be the front runner for MVP right now. So the Ravens have to find a way to stop him, especially with the lack of pass rush. Chris Carson, 22 touches a game, third amongst running backs. He's going to get the ball a lot. And they have Rashad Penny, who was a first-round draft pick last year, and he's not playing much, but he could get an opportunity at some point, and he's a good back that's just not being utilized. But he could be put in the game at any point, and they won't miss a beat. So between Penny and Carson and Russell Wilson, then you look at wide receivers Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, who a lot of Ravens fans wanted before they ended up taking Hollywood. This is a good Seattle team. Now, they haven't beaten a team with a winning record either. Their biggest win was over the Rams, who are 3-3. So both teams have a lot to prove. Ravens going into Seattle, a hostile environment, need to control the clock, need to run the ball. The Ravens need to run for 250 yards, and they need to control that time of possession against the Seahawks. Otherwise, Russell Wilson is going to be on the field too much. He's going to pick you apart, especially with the Ravens defense not being what it once was. So I'll get to my predictions in a little bit, but the Ravens have the 13th overall defense, Seattle 20th overall. Ravens are 4th against the rush, and the Seahawks are 11th against the rush. Ravens 25th against the pass, allowing 269.5 yards a game, whereas the Seahawks are 23rd against the pass, allowing 267 yards a game. So Lamar could have a field day running the ball, throwing the ball. Hollywood's going to be out. Peanut's going to be out. So both big hits to the offense and the defense there for the Ravens. I anticipate Lamar having a big game, but some wide receiver has got to step up. Last week, the wide receiving core had 7 catches as a unit. You need a good number one has 7 catches in a solid game. 7 catches from the entire unit. You're looking at Willie Snead as your number 1 right now. Maybe Boykin as your number 2, and then Seth Roberts and Chris Moore catching maybe 2 balls like they did last week. The receiving core needs to step up. Look for a lot of Mark Andrews. Look for Hayden Hurst to get some more play. And I've been calling for Hayden Hurst to get the ball a lot this year. And, his big game, he had 4 catches for 32 yards. They need to find a way to get the ball in his hands, too, because they need some playmakers in the passing game. So, looking at the playoff push, looking at the AFC North, the Steelers, they beat an early Super Bowl favorite in the Los Angeles Chargers. They beat them 24-17 last week in LA. The Steelers fans completely took over that stadium, took over that game, and it was a big time lead at half. I think it was something like 21-3 at halftime. The Chargers had no answer for the Steelers with their third string quarterback. Melvin Gordon already complaining about his lack of touches. He only had 8 carries, saying it's hard to get going with only 8 carries. He wants the ball more. He's only played 3 weeks. Phillip Rivers couldn't get anything going. Now, look, the pass rush, they didn't have a lot of sacks to show for it, but TJ Watt alone, J.J. Watt's brother, had 4 quarterback hits and a half a sack. Only 1 sack on the game, but Phillip Rivers was under duress the entire game and could never really get comfortable, couldn't get anything going, had some key drops by his receivers. It just wasn't a good game for the Chargers. 24-17 was the final score there, and the game was never that close. The Chargers made it somewhat of a game at the end, but they were never really in it. So the Steelers flying high right now, heading into their bye on a good note, having won 2 of their last 3 games, and trying to get themselves back into that AFC North race. We know Roethlisberger's out for the year, but Mason Rudolph should be back after the bye, still in concussion protocol, but he should be all right to play after the bye. So Steelers looking to get rested and get healthy. James Conner and Snell, they ran the ball very well and effectively. Conner left the game with an injury. He's always got something ailing him, so that's something to keep an eye on. But they combined for 3 rushing touchdowns between the 2 of them and about 115 yards. So, or maybe, no, I'm sorry, about 120 yards. So the Steelers running game trying to get back on track as well. You look over at the Browns. Boy, they went out to Seattle, and Seattle tried to hand them that game, and Baker Mayfield just handed it right back. 3 more interceptions, most interceptions in the league of any quarterback. He's one of the worst rated quarterbacks in the league. He's been feeling dangerous. Well, he's only been dangerous to the Cleveland Browns because he's not helping them win ball games at all right now. And, Nick Chubb, he's an all-world running back, one of the best backs in football, might be the best back in the AFC right now. And he's showing. He's got over 600 rushing yards, another 122 last week, and a score after torching the Ravens. The Browns are on a bye, and they need it because they have the Patriots coming up after that, and they are just not playing well. 2-4 in the division. This is a team that they were paper champions in the offseason. Greedy Williams, the cornerback taken in the 2nd round, pronounced them Super Bowl champions when he got drafted, and they're 2-4, and they're staring 2-5. Right in the face. And if the Ravens can pull out a win against the Seahawks this week, and then heading into their bye, and then the Browns lose to the Patriots, the Ravens have a 3-game lead heading into that game against New England. So it's a big game for the Ravens, big game for the Browns going up against New England. I don't see them beating New England, so we'll see how that goes. And then you look at the Bengals. They're going to play. What are we doing? Sorry, driving. Nobody could make up their mind. My apologies. Bengals heading out to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. Actually, I'm not sure if that game's in Jacksonville or Cincinnati. Either way, you're looking at a Jacksonville team that just lost their best player in Jalen Ramsey. They're on their 2nd-string quarterback in Gardner Minshew, but he's playing at a very high level right now. Bengals 0-6. They have no pass rush. They have no offensive line. They have no defense. They're top. They have 2 of their top 3 wide receivers are injured in John Ross III and A.J. Green, and they can't get that running game going. They rushed for just 33 yards against the Ravens last week, and then on 14 carries. And Joe Mixon, I've said it every week, he led the AFC in rushing yards last year, and he can't get anything going. His best game, I think, was 92 yards a couple of weeks ago, but other than that, he's averaging about 3.5 yards a carry. They're just not doing anything. Now, that Jacksonville defense isn't what it used to be. They're not great against the run. They're going to be even worse against the pass right now. And even against the pass now, they're middle of the pack. And that was with Jalen Ramsey. So I look for Andy Dalton to have himself a pretty solid game. I still think Jacksonville's going to win that game because I think they're the better team. I think they have more talent. But we'll see. I don't know where the Bengals are going to find a win in their schedule. They've played a lot of close games, but they're just not a good football team. They've got a lot of injuries, and they've got a lot of issues on that team. So, to be determined on when they can find themselves a victory. I don't think it happens this week against Jacksonville. So, and now, headed to Seattle for the Ravens. My predictions for this week. I think the Ravens are going to rush for over 200, maybe even over 250 yards. I think Lamar's going to have a solid game running. I think he's going to have a solid game passing. They've got to feed the rock to Ingram. He had just 13 carries last week. His game high this year is 19 against Pittsburgh the week before. We only had 44 yards. He's got over 400 yards rushing. He's averaging just about 5 yards a carry. He has 7 touchdowns. He should carry the ball no less than 15 times this week. They should run the ball no less than 40 times this week. The wide receivers need to get involved, but I don't think that's going to happen this week. I think whoever wins the turnover battle wins this game, and I think the Ravens, with Marcus Peters and Earl Thomas looking to get some vengeance against his former team, I think one of those guys, or maybe both of them, are going to come up with a pick. I think they're going to snap Russell Wilson's streak of not turning the ball over, and I think that the Seahawks are going to turn the ball over, maybe a Chris Carson fumble, because that's what he's been known to do recently. They're going to turn the ball over late, and it's going to hurt them. And I think the Ravens are going to come out on top of the 28-27 victory, head into the bye at 5-2 with a 2.5 game lead in the division, with the Browns going to face the Patriots next week. So Ravens heading into the bye on a feel-good win, 5-2. I'm thinking they're going to beat the Seahawks. So that's my predictions. Thanks for tuning into the Football Frenzy. Once again, I'm Paul Valle. Again, no show next week because I'm going to be out of town and the Ravens are on bye. But look for our recap of the Ravens-Seahawks game the following week. And then we'll also preview the game against the Patriots, which might be the biggest game of the year after this week. So, again, thanks for tuning in. It's been the Football Frenzy, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys.